Welcome back to the American Landscape. I'm Greg Knight, your friendly travel ambassador. Today I'm in Nampa, Idaho. It's my first time in Idaho. I've been really excited. I've been wanting to come here for a long time. And today I'm at the Warhawk Air Museum. And you know I love a military museum, so let's go in and see what it's got to offer. The Warhawk Air Museum is just 17 miles from Boise, Idaho, 251 miles from Elko, Nevada, and 318 miles from Ogden, Utah. One country, 50 states, and many roads. It's all about the American road trip. So please join me and together we'll visit roadside attractions, fascinating museums, unique landmarks, and offbeat points of interest.
Hi, welcome to the Wrigley Mansion. Come on in.
Welcome to the Museum of the Forgotten Warrior.
But most importantly, we'll experience the inspiring people and grandeur of the American landscape. Sue, I'm Greg.
Greg, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm
Appreciate it.
really looking forward to this. I love military museums. I'm a vet myself. So what do you got to show us today?
Well, we have a lot to show you, and we want to thank you for your service to our country.
Oh, thank you.
Right off the bat as you come into the museum.
All right. So what's the official name of the museum?
This is called the Warhawk Air Museum.
How did you get started? Where did the name come from? Was it just in your backyard at one time? How did you get up here with all this stuff?
Actually, it was kind of in our backyard. Our whole backyard was filled with airplane parts, World War II fighter plane parts. Yeah, my husband, that was his hobby to restore them, and it was named the Warhawk because of the Warhawk, which is right back here, the Curtiss P-40.
Okay.
Yeah. So my husband started building and collecting World War II airplanes when he was in his 20s. We were married, and so I kind of went along with the whole thing, and we had 3 kids in the meantime, and had a small manufacturing business. And in 1986, that was in California, 1986, we decided to move the company up here to Idaho. Some of our family members were here and we wanted to be closer to them, so we did. And when we moved up here, John had finished 2 Curtiss P-40s, a P-40E and a P-40N model, which is the Warhawk, and was restoring a P-51B model. Oh, wow. And so we moved all that up and built a little hangar out at Caldwell Airport, about 10 miles from here.
It's just next door, right?
Yeah, and we go out every weekend and fly airplanes, both pilots, and just
so have a good time. There's an interest because you're pilots also.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Both actually retired from flying because, you know, his hearing and eyes, and you're 81, and at some point in your life you say, you know, I've been there, I've done it, it's great, but we had a lot of fun, and so our planes are all here, part of this museum. Wow. So the museum came about. It was very simple. When we moved here, we didn't know that there was such a military history. My husband and I were not in the military. My dad was in World War II, but that was the extent of our family experience in military. And so people started coming out to see the airplanes. I mean, they just were, it was just a constant flow of people wanting to see the World War II airplanes. And so one day we came out, we'd been here about a few months, and there was a box of uniforms sitting next to our back door with just a note that said, these were my grandfather's, we don't want them, would you like to have them? And we thought, wow, you know, so we pulled them into the hangar, and not too long after that we came out and there was a whole stack of World War II radios with a note.
Wow.
My husband had these in the attic, don't want, no phone numbers, no names. So we pulled those in and thought, what is this? And then finally, when we had a box of medals left, World War II medals, we thought, okay, this is enough. We don't want these things personally. They have history. Sure. They have personal histories to different families. So we felt that there was a need to have a nonprofit museum where these personal historical items could be donated and personal histories could be preserved. And so that was the birth of the Warhawk Air Museum.
So that's a lot what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing photographs and binders and...
You will see cabinets and beautiful collections as you walk through. So it's quite incredible. This museum is a people museum. People come through this museum and they leave a different person because they have been allowed into the lives of our veterans and their families.
Yeah, it's sad to think that your relatives might not want it, but they might not have the same kind of connection that maybe the original owner of them, or maybe the first generation. And I've wondered about that too. You know, I'm worried about where's my dad's flag going to go. He was a Navy vet from the Korean War. You know, where my uniforms I donated
to. It can go right here.
Can come here.
As long as we have pictures of him and his uniform. Every item is personalized. You will see that.
Okay, that's great.
There's never just something in the museum.
Anonymous.
It's all anonymous. Everything has a story. So then we began the collections here of the World War I collections that are very rare. They're very elegant, very interesting. You know, I'm very big on technology,
yeah.
and the technology. And you'll notice as you walk through here, every cabinet has binders on the outside. You at all times are able to learn about the individual or the individuals that are being, whose histories are being preserved here at the museum. You know, we partnered with the Library of Congress about 15 years ago to become one of the interviewing centers for the Library of Congress. And it's called the Veterans History Project program. So we have sent, and we film our veterans. We have a soundproof filming room that a World War II veteran donated $100,000 in our new wing to build a soundproof interviewing room. We were before that doing it right out front in the library where it was noisy, and so and we have sent over 1,500 of these interviews now have gone to the Library of Congress for their site. And and the most important thing is that over 1,500 veterans have been given this as a gift, and their families see them on film telling their stories and how important that is. So I'm telling you this, and we are now providing, Warhawk Air Museum is providing 1% of all of the interviews going to the Library of Congress come from this museum. And the point I'm going to make in reference to what we've just been talking about your service and who thinks they've done something important or not important. One of the women I interviewed was a cook during peacetime, that she was a cook in the Navy. And she really felt that she hadn't done anything. So it's very important that people leave that interview knowing that they've given to our country in some way. So we talked about nourishment. I got her to start talking about nourishing the troops, because that's what she did. Sure. And so by the time we were through with that interview, I mean, she just felt like she had really contributed something, which she had.
That's
you
great.
see. So there's
Even
all
now,
levels.
Yeah.
They're all levels.
It chokes me up.
Yeah. So you need to come here and let me do yours.
So we're going to be talking about this little guy. Now, is this a toy? What is this?
No. No, if you were a pilot in World War II, you'd be climbing in that. So every pilot of World War II that went into service had to learn to fly on instruments. Okay, so this was the simulator of World War II.
So would one of these been at Santa Ana Army Air Station,
yes,
like by me? They would have had these.
If they were a link trainer. These are called link trainers, okay? And the design for this was actually designed by the man who invented the organ, the bellows for the organ.
I saw the bellows, and I thought it looked like an organ type thing.
There again, technology, how it carries through and moves through time for other things that we need, you know, in our cultures. And so this is it. The pilot would actually climb inside this. The lid goes on. It's very black inside. They're dark. Only the instruments are lit. They're connected here to this called the spider. And then the instructor is able to move this airplane. It can go around, it can do this, and it can do this. All right. And so he would be, and the spider would be on a piece of paper just like this, all right, on the desk. And as the instructor gave instructions to go to a certain heading, then they would have to get all of their instruments on that heading and fly a straight line until they were told to do something else. Now, they were always, in World War II, the radio stations that they were trying to find were by hearing. It was all but
the closer you're getting.
And that's what they flew over the hump in storms and in World War II, listening for that.
Really?
So that's how they were trained, you see. This very same way in this.
So it's not dead reckoning at this point. They're literally
by
listening
ear.
to
They're
that.
listening to getting closer to the station. And so this student, that's how that student flew, and this would be going all over the paper, and how well they did in making their turns, and how well they were able to read their instruments.
That would be cool to see operating.
Yeah.
Now, would I have been too tall in
Yes.
that day?
Yeah, you would have been able to go into the bomber corps. You could have been a
Okay.
bomber pilot, bomber crew. You would never have been a fighter.
Okay.
Yeah. The target kites are extremely rare. I don't think that you'll ever see them anywhere else.
I don't think I've ever seen one of
No,
those
they're
before.
very rare. And
So you say target kite. Now, is that to teach you what the silhouette looked like
no,
up in the
to
air?
teach you how to shoot. In fact, the wasps pulled these behind airplanes for some of the guys
To shoot?
to shoot at. Yeah, a few
Hanging
of them got
behind
hit too. They also went off. They went off of the backs of ships. I mean, that's what they were for. They were for target practice. So World War II was a time of patriotism, extreme. In fact, patriotism was the glue of the country. It's what held us together. And one of the things that we had hanging throughout the homes of America were the mother's flags. And the number of stars on the flag, you'll see these throughout the museum, indicated how many family members she had serving in the country. And frequently you would see one that had a gold star on it. That she had either sewn on herself or it came that way, and those were the death of her children. The gold star represented the death of a child. So John and I found in a garage sale in New York City, this very large one that we have hanging on the wall. It was rolled up and just laying down in some dealer's little area, and we knew it was a mother's flag. But he didn't. So we asked him where he got it, and he said it was in a church yard sale in upstate New York, that it had hung in this church for 65 years. The property was sold, and so everything went with it. And so we bought that from him and donated it to the museum. And those are all the boys. That's a handmade mother's flag. Those are all the boys that went to war from that church, and in the middle is a whole line of gold stars.
I thought, the
Yeah.
contrast, or it's faded.
Right.
I thought the middle looked like.
Yeah, it's
so
gold.
in this instance, it's a mother's flag, but the mother of all the people in this church.
Yes,
so I was
of
thinking
the
that is
church.
one big family.
Yeah, no, that was the church that had that. But around, as if people walk through here, they see the smaller mother's flags that we have, depicting that. So.
What are these bricks here?
Aren't they beautiful?
They are.
Yeah, well, this is for our future. This will be a part of, once we finish with the third wing, the Global War on Terror wing, then we'll have a place to be able to have a brick garden. They will not be put on the ground. We'll have a magnificent wall of some sort. But people are buying these right now, and they're selling like crazy because people want their names left, somewhere and left here.
I'm actually amazed by, I've seen, a lot of things like this, but the detail of the logos.
Yes.
I mean, the etching on this is
Yes.
wonderful.
And we have a standard that comes with it, or we are always able to personalize. People have a certain look that they want, and we're able to give that to them.
Or division.
Which frequently they do. This is a Waco glider, World War II. We were traveling up to through Salmon, Idaho, and John spotted it on the field.
See, I would have thought that was like an old,
That's what
trailer or something.
Everybody did for years. For 33 years, people thought that.
Really?
And then but we went by, and John said, "That's a Waco glider fuselage." So we stopped and went in and tramped over there, and it was. And we found out the farm was for sale. Found out where we could buy this thing. The family didn't know. He was gone. The old guy was gone. He had bought it at the end of World War II and converted it into a family trailer where you can see inside. This is what it looked like. But they didn't know it was a Waco glider, and so we were able to get it and bring it here for the museum. Once we got it here, we stripped all the metal off of it, thinking, well, we'll just recover it. But once we did that, we just thought, the original World War II door is still on it.
Nice.
The glass from World War II is still on it. The wheels are still on it. The wing struts are from World War II. So we thought, we're going to leave this as a warrior.
It's the model of what it would have been like.
That's the model.
Now, these are the ones they pulled up, were dragged like on D-Day behind a bigger plane, right?
And left. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's why there are none around. I mean, there are none flying today at all. And they were just left there. But they carried horses. They carried jeeps. I mean, they took what they needed and took them into wherever they needed to have them. Very dangerous service. But it wasn't until we did this that Lou started getting binders from glider pilots who we'd never would have gotten them before.
So you mentioned a lot of school kids come, and I, of course, I read things and I see what people now would be considered very politically incorrect, racist maybe. But at the time, I don't think it would have been. Like I served in the Cold War, I never thought of the Soviets people as bad people. It's the government. It's the force. So when I see description of the Japanese or whatever, I have a feeling, though I do know some people that might have been a little racist with that. It was more of a, you have to kind of like bring your enemy down, so kind of common thread to get people to fight or to realize it's your enemy. Does that question ever come up with like kids? Like they're like, can you believe what that says? You ever have that kind of stuff?
No, and I'll tell you why. There's two reasons why.
Okay.
Number one, we humanize everything in here. This is the Nazi cabinet. These were boys 18, 19 years old, just like Americans, just like, you know, British, just like whatever, fighting for their country because they were told to. That's an exhibit of the Nazis. This is all part of the Nazis. There's not, this is, and above all, everything you see here is somebody's story, and we will never argue with their story. We will never, ever criticize or argue with a personal story of someone who served our country, because this is their story. These are stories that are about people's lives, and that's what makes this museum so incredibly special, is that everything in here is a personal story. The museum provides a hollow, respectable, honorable ground for people to preserve their personal stories. And there's no arguing with that.
Yeah, that's
there's
a great
no right or wrong
perspective.
about that.
Yeah.
None.
So this is the Lou I've been hearing about? Hey Lou, nice to meet you.
Now, this gentleman here was in New York, American citizen. 1941, he ended up crossing the border into Canada and became part of the Royal Canadian Air Force. They put him in Malta, flying Spitfires. And in Malta, of course, the life expectancy of a pilot was about 3 months. But
3 months, really?
That was maximum. Yeah, it was. Malta was a hard place. But anyway, then he was shot down. He lived. He was wounded, but he went into a hospital in Cairo, Egypt, and subsequently, then they sent him back to Canada, where he taught flight training. The binders on the side of the cabinets go through his period as a kid with a family, and then in Malta. You can see by looking at it again the computers.
For those young ones watching, that dial is a computer.
Yes,
Right.
There were a number of boys that crossed the border to Canada before we got in the war. These people, in my mind, as a kid growing up with a lot of these guys, they're the personification of the words duty, honor, and country. And it's something that has impacted me my whole life.
Yeah.
They left their mark for sure.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Those things, yeah.
Thanks, Lou.
Well, and you design every one of these cabinets?
He does.
Is that
Yes,
right?
it takes me about 5 weeks to figure out. And I move stuff around. And some fellows brought a ton of stuff back.
I mean, you can come back 2 months later, there'll be another collection you hadn't seen before, or something will be changing.
If
so
you're going to
it's
read
a living,
everything,
yeah.
it'll take a lot longer.
That's what I'm
than
saying.
that.
I don't think
yeah.
I could even
It's
scratch
history-
the surface in a
It's history
day.
as it happened, often in their
Yeah.
own words.
Right.
Okay, and that is real history. It's not an
Right.
opinion on any internet
No.
or some baloney. It's
Yeah.
the real thing.
It's the personal.
Yeah.
First person.
First person,
Yeah.
that's a good way of putting it. This is a first person museum. Yeah.
You
So,
can keep that. It's
thank
not
you.
copyrighted.
Okay, thank you. I like it. Okay, thank you, Lou.
Wow.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet
Appreciate
you. Wonderful job.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, the women Air Force service pilots, they were a volunteer group of women that Jackie Cochran pulled together. What happened was World War II hit and all the men were left. I mean, literally they left the country, went because we were at 2 wars. We were at war in both, you know, all over the world, but Atlantic and Pacific. And so they were gone. And so Jackie Cochran was an air race pilot in the 30s. She also owned her own makeup company that was huge. She was very, very wealthy, married to a very wealthy industrialist. She never went past the 4th grade and was a gutsy gal. And so she knew Hap Arnold. General Arnold was the commander of the Air Corps. And so she went to him and said, look, there are a lot of women pilots in this country who can do the work here at home, because women were not allowed in combat in any division of the military. We were not allowed in combat during World War II. Chinese women already were. Russian women already were, and had been since since World War I or earlier. But women in America weren't allowed to yet, and so she said, let us take over the ferrying jobs. We can move planes around here. We can train. We can tow kites, target kites. And so he agreed to an experimental program. He said, okay, well, let's give this a shot and see if it works. So she put out the word, and over 25,000 women applied to become a women Air Force service pilot as a civilian, and she picked 1,084 were chosen. Wow. And they flew every airplane that we manufactured, from every bomber, every fighter, every trainer, those women flew.
So they flew from the manufacturing to wherever they were.
To a base, or from base to base. In fact, they were ferried up to Hamilton, Montana, and from there they'd go to Great Falls, and then the male pilots would take them into Russia. These are our WASPs over here. These are all the women. We have been so lucky over the years. John and I have found these uniforms and brought them to the museum. At every division of the military, women served, and these are their uniforms, what they looked like, what they wore. Very difficult to find, because when the war ended and nobody had any money, beautiful gabardine, the fabrics were beautiful, so they just kept them, and wore them. And so you couldn't, very few left,
and
right?
And far few served, so overall, just a percentage-wise, it's harder?
No, millions of women served.
Millions?
Millions of women served during World War II.
And they served in what capacities?
The Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard.
I mean, like
mainly
like nurses and
or clerical work, office work. They worked for for the officers in anything they could do here at home. That's what they did.
They never got close to the theaters of war.
Never.
And
then we have the WASPs that I just told you about.
Yep.
These are two that we were very, very good friends with. Kay trained right here at Nampa. Lana Boxberger is from Boise. And so they donated their entire collections here. Walt Disney designed the little Fifanelli. You'll see it on everything. They still own the copyright of that, but they designed it so that they would have a good luck elf for them, and they put it on everything. They were barely even paid during the war.
Really?
When Hap Arnold ended the program after 18 months, because the boys were all coming home, wherever they were, they had to find their own way home. They made their own uniforms. Nothing was issued. Nothing. They made their own wings.
I did not
designed
know that.
them and had them done. Yeah, it was strictly a civilian time that these women spent there, and they were a great group of women. Believe me, we knew quite a few of them, and geez, really saucy group of women.
I bet.
Yeah,
I bet.
Really fun.
When I was learning to fly, my friends all said, "Oh, she flies like a bumblebee." I took it as a compliment. I don't know whether it was meant that way or not, but somehow or other it stuck.
No effort is spared to win this coeducational war, and the only basis on which a WASP is judged is her ability to fly well.
They weren't really well received. Believe me, there was a lot of prejudice against seeing this gorgeous gal come in on a Mustang and land at a field that she's ferrying so the guy can get in and go to war, right?
And very often the women, because our work clothes involve slacks, some of the restaurants would not admit a woman if she was wearing slacks. She had to wear skirts.
Right. And Jackie Cochran, having her own a makeup factory company of her own. She was a beautiful woman, a very feminine woman, and she and every single WASP had a little makeup kit that she carried with her, and when she landed at any field, she put on her lipstick and a little rouge before she climbed out of the airplane.
Awesome.
That was Jackie Cochran. The real tragedy, though, is that they were not allowed, when the war was over and they got out of B-17s and B-25s and Mustangs and everything that they flew, Corsairs, they couldn't fly commercially. They weren't allowed to fly an airliner.
That's amazing.
Because women were not considered emotionally stable enough to put people's lives in their hands on an airliner. So they could be air traffic controllers, or they could teach flying on a private level. but they couldn't go into commercial flying.
That's amazing.
And it was devastating. I know it was devastating to most of the women. It was the highlight of their life, was that
Oh, I
period of
bet.
time. So Kay told me, she said many of the gals became alcoholics and had really tough times afterwards, because how do you get it back?
Yeah.
So she said, so I was determined that wasn't going to happen to me. So I went back to college, and she became a dance teacher at a university and had the joy of her life
Nice.
dancing. Yeah.
You should pursue whatever it is that you want, and you should not allow people to say, oh, you can't do that. The word can't should not be in your vocabulary. To all the service members of today, I salute you.
I thought I heard somewhere that one of these planes might have been in a movie or two.
Both of our P-40s were. We like to tell the story about when we moved from Caldwell to here. That was a little 7,000 square foot hangar, and we moved here to Nampa because the city came to us and said, we'd like for you to move to Nampa and be the cornerstone of the airport. And we wanted to move to have a better educational program and to expand the museum, which we couldn't do at Caldwell. And so we said, we will do it. And we came here and thought, okay, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to build a 20,000 square foot building, which is what we wanted to do? And lo and behold, the movie Pearl Harbor came along. Well, Michael Bay wanted our airplanes in the movie. So both of our P-40s went to Pearl Harbor. We went with them. And when the film was done, then they belonged to us personally, so we donated all of the money to the museum, and that became the seed money for this first wing. And so John likes to say the P-40s paid for their own home. And then in 2017, we knew this was closed. This was just the one hangar here, and we couldn't even move in here. And I had always wanted to expand into the Cold War era, particularly Vietnam, because that was my era, and that was the tragedy of the way this country behaved. Never left me, and so I thought someday we'll be able to honor our Vietnam veterans in this museum. So the time had come to open this up and add another 20,000 square feet. And we thought, okay, how are we going to afford to do that? Well, lo and behold, the movie Valkyrie came along, and Tom Cruise wanted our P-40, the E that you'll see, because it's in the exact markings of the British markings when they bombed in the North African desert, and they bombed Rommel. So the opening scene of that, you'll see our P-40.
Nice.
And so then we donated all that money to the museum, and that was the seed money to begin opening this up. And then in 2017, we opened the Cold War wing. And I knew we had to have a different environment because America's relationship with the Cold War era was different from World War II.
It's a sticky.
We don't have them.
sticky
We
wicket.
don't have the mother's flags. We don't have the patriotic emphasis that World War II had to have in order to win a world war. This was not a world war. These were different conflicts that we became involved in. And in a lot of cases in America, we didn't know why. And so I wanted to have a significant change, so I had a professional set maker come here from LA and build these walls. They're exact replicas of the Berlin walls. And then people started donating pieces of the wall that they brought home. And so then you step into this era of technology development, the jets. Vietnam is kind of the center of this wing, and thus we have the Huey helicopter, of course.
That is beautiful. I'm not sure I've seen one in that condition close up.
And that's a story in itself, too. Everything out here has a story.
Stories, yeah.
But as Carson said, this is probably, you want to go, let's introduce Carson at this point, okay?
Hey, Carson, I know we've met before, but nice to see you again.
Carson is the executive director of the Warhawk Air Museum, and just a huge part of everything that we're doing now and where we're moving in the future. So we are really proud to have him here.
Yeah, our mission here at the Warhawk Air Museum is to educate our visitors on the cost of freedom and to honor those that paid its price. And this is sacred, hollow ground, and I'm a combat veteran myself. I was wounded in Baghdad, and you know, I've really enjoyed listening and learning from John and Sue Paul about the World War II portion of the museum, and as we come into the Vietnam era and the Cold War era. And I would just share, Greg, if for those watching out there, if you haven't been in, you got to come in and see the museum. We just have this new display. We're always adding new displays here, and you know, wanting to honor veterans for their sacrifice. And this one is, we're really proud of it. You can interact with the program and type the veteran's name and leave remembrances and read other remembrances that folks left of our soldiers that were killed in action in Vietnam. And
Going to search for Chad.
You said this was Dan's friends?
yes, sir. They were in Ojai together and went to high school together. And as you know, my dad, like Sue, was so upset with how the soldiers were treated when they returned from the war. This was a part of that, as Chad didn't come home, and my dad wanted to honor him. That's him.
There he is here.
Look at that.
And he's doing this because this was one of his father's best friends who died in
okay.
Vietnam. It pulls Chad up. We know that there are 3 other photos there that we can look at of Chad.
Wow. So this is like the digital equivalent almost of some of the books or the binders we've seen.
And then you can see where he died, the day he died, and then you can see add more photos. You can add remembrances, and I was with Chad the day he died. I will never forget. He will live it forever in my mind. So I think the thing we like, or we want people to really understand as we put about honoring it and what this is that the Warhawk now has been able to bring every single name on the Vietnam War in a face to be a part of this museum.
So I have one of those bracelets.
Yeah.
Most likely he's in here somewhere.
Probably, if you have his name, you'll find him. But this museum, every cabinet you see, as you know, represents a person and their life. We now are able to bring these boys into the Warhawk Air Museum permanently.
Well,
every name
if I
is on
could
the
quote
wall.
somebody that a few of us know here, it's not about war, it's about people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So the Nagel Foundation funded this whole thing.
And who's Nagel? I'm not familiar
Nagel
with that name.
Foundation, it's a foundation that supports education here in
Okay.
the Valley. Yeah,
Okay.
John Nagel was the man, it's his family foundation. This display was created by John Sterling, who served 2 tours of duty as a lieutenant in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And he was a forward observer. That's him. He brought the jets in, told them where the enemy were, and he reproduced his bunker completely for us out here.
If anything says Vietnam with
It's
an
the
aircraft, it's probably the Huey. I think it was known as kind of the helicopter war. I mean, right? I mean, they took troops in, they picked up troops, they fought with these things. How did you get such a great-looking piece of machinery in here? I'm sure there's been some restoration.
Yes, there has been. We actually found this Huey, and you're right about the Huey. The thing that makes the Vietnam War, this is the center of Vietnam, the sound. It was the heartbeat of Vietnam, of the Vietnam War, and it was the first war we used helicopters as the main source because it was a jungle. They had to get down in it. And so it was a very important, iconic piece of equipment during that war. When we got this, we found it down in Sacramento area in a junkyard. This is what it looked like right here.
Look at that.
We brought it home and put it in that maintenance hangar across the way, and it sat there for 2 years until one day these 2 guys walked in and they introduced themselves and said, "We hear you've got 069 here," which is the tail number on this. And we said we did. They went over and looked at it. John went over to talk with them, and lo and behold, the last pilot and co-pilot in combat in Vietnam in this Huey.
Now, are they in that picture?
Yes, they are in that picture.
Oh, that is
in combat.
cool.
This was we did not know at that time it was a combat Huey. In combat, and they were so excited to see. They thought it was thrown overboard or left in
Yeah, because so many of those were. Yeah.
They had no idea that it was now a part of a museum.
How does that word get around that the tail numbers or an aircraft has ended up someplace? I mean, these guys heard.
They heard we had a Huey. He's up in Salmon.
Okay.
And the word had gotten around somehow because we probably put a picture of it, on the
Okay,
web, right,
yeah.
or something. And they heard we had it, so they came down to see it.
That's amazing.
And in seeing it, you see, they saw the tail number. This is
Okay.
probably the picture we published, right? And so, And so not long after that, they were very, very excited about that it had been put in a museum. Well, not long after that, and they started contacting then all of the guys that were still living from their crew to start sending pictures to us so we could put it with the Huey. Well, not long after that, we found out about a company up in Hamilton, Montana, where we have a log cabin, who was restoring Cobras for the U.S. government. And so we went to see them, and the propellers, see, were laying on the ground, and we had no idea how we were going to put them on, because John's not he's a World War II
Fixed wing and World War II guy.
He didn't know how to do this, so that was sitting on the ground. So he went in and talked to them, and he said, told them we had the Huey down here, and the guy said, well, do you have any spare parts for it? And John said, yeah, we've got a couple of crates of spare parts that we're never going to use. And he said, well, how about if I come down there and take a look? Maybe we can do some trading. So he came down, and back at John's mind, he was saying to himself, okay, I bet I could get this guy to put that on for us if we trade parts. So the guy looked through all the crates and came back to John and said, you've got a lot of things that I can use, so here's what I'd like to do for you. I would like to come down here with my pickup truck. I would like to come with my trailer, pick up this Huey, take it back to my shop up in Hamilton, and I will completely restore this for you at no charge to the museum.
No way. Because
he loved what we were doing. And 3 of his men that worked there were Vietnam veterans. They were thrilled. So now RJ really got busy saying, send us all the pictures you've got. Send us everything you have, because it's all going to this company, because we're going to restore this airplane or this Huey the way, and as a result, we have all of these are original photos from Vietnam that they all took, these guys all took and have kept, and they sent them to us.
So I'm guessing at the time that you first got it, you didn't know the Mustangs or the little symbol they had?
No.
None of that?
No, we didn't. And so they, so 2 months later, here it is. And we had them bring it back, and we had RJ contact all of the guys to come for an unveiling. They had no idea what it looked like. So we had it, they came here, there were about 35 of them, a few of them brought their wives too, and we had it, that door was closed, the Huey was sideways on the other side of the door with the door closed. About 500 people from the public, we invited the public, came. The Air Guard came over here and did a flag presentation, which they'd never received before, and come around over here. And they brought with them for the ceremony the missing man tribute, which they lost 35 men off this Huey in combat. They had never performed a missing man tribute for those men, so they brought all of this and they set it up in front of everyone. They provided they said what the missing man tribute is, which this small table is a way of symbolizing the fact that some of our brothers are missing from our midst. They are unable to be with us, and so we remember them. The table set for one is small. It symbolizes the fragility of us all. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our brothers who will not return. The red ribbon, tied so predominantly on the vase, is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breast of thousands who bear witness to the tragedy of POWs and MIAs, and with unyielding determination demand a proper accounting of for our missing. A slice of lemon rests on the plate. It reminds us of their bitter fate. There is salt upon the plate, symbolic of the tears of families and loved ones. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us. The chair is forever empty. They are not here. We take time to recall those who were our brothers in arms. We depended on them for aid and support. Let us remember all of our missing and honor them as we pause for a moment of silence. And then they read off the name right here. Those are all the men that never came, the boys that didn't come back. When we were through with the service, then we opened the hangar door, and it was dead silence. Those 35 men got up together, and they all went out and they all climbed in this Huey together.
So Carson, I know we only have you for a few minutes. What is the future for the museum? What's it hold? What's happening? What should we anticipate seeing down the line?
That's a great question. The museum is on an awesome trajectory right now. We're about to break ground on a new post 9/11 Iraq and Afghanistan wing of the museum. It's our nation's longest war, and I think I'm a veteran myself. I served in southern Baghdad, and many of us haven't talked about it until recently, and Iraq and Afghanistan veterans are just getting started to where they're raising a family and they've been pursuing their career and dealing with coming back from the war, and now's the time where they're getting more involved, and we're having the museum out here has a monthly gathering of veterans. We had almost 300 veterans here, the largest gathering of veterans in the state of Idaho. Monthly we have coffee out here the first Tuesday of every month, and we saw about 20 Iraq and Afghanistan veterans out here for the first time. So we really want to build a part of the museum to honor the global war on terrorism. If you haven't been to the museum, please come out and visit us. It's a lot to see. We have annual memberships, family memberships, a lot of deals on Labor Day when it's around Veterans Day. So please come out and see us first of all. I would also say check out warhawkairmuseum.org. We've got a great website, Facebook application. We now have an app. So there's a lot of ways where you can get involved with the museum. With the new hangar, we have the unique opportunity where we can really put together a committee and design it how we want it to be. So we know we want it to be very tech interactive to educate the youth today on what's happened and the sacrifices, and so that's exciting. We know we want to have a classroom. We know we want to have a space where it's really easy to have a venue where we can hold 400 people in there, and we already do funerals, military pinnings, ceremonies, weddings, and it's a lot of work to move these amazing vintage World War II aircraft in and out. To have a 400-person funeral in here, but we do it. It's an honor to do it. But if we have the chance to build the venue in over there, that's going to be part of it. A kitchen, a classroom. We know right now we're talking about Blackhawk, Bradley, Humvee, and then again very interactive where the youth of today can learn all about it and get their hands on some of this stuff. Right now we are in the design phase, so that's what I would say is if you're a veteran and you're watching this and you have an ISIS flag or some uniforms and some medals, we are accepting those donations now, and we'd love to build a display on you as we set this new facility up.
But we should preface that you don't want just the flag, you want the story that's connected
exactly.
to it.
This whole museum and what I learned where I was brought up in the Museum of the Forgotten Warriors, and what John and Sue Paul and Lou and the team have done so well here at the Warhawk Air Museum is they keep it about the people.
Sue,
Thank you so much.
thank you. I was actually moved to tears a few times. I was like,
No.
it's like it's amazing.
Well,
I
I'm
get like
glad
this at
that's
places
what
like
we
this.
want. Frankly, that's what we want. We
wanna
watch
make me
people.
cry?
Yes, we watch people leave here, and they are not the same as when
Yeah.
they came in.
That's good, and I'm hoping the military guys, I know do that, but the non-military, I hope it hits to the people that understand why we serve and do
Yes.
what we do. And this is
The
really
Warhawk.
what the museum is named after, right?
Yeah, it's the Warhawk, the P-40 Warhawk. Yep.
Curtis
This is
P-40N. So it's an N model.
It's an N model, right? The Warhawk is an N model. The E model, which is our other model, is the Kitty Hawk.
little details. Prices can change, so I'm not so worried about what it costs to come. And usually these places aren't outrageous anyways. It's really affordable. Days and hours you're open, though, that's more important. When can people come see you?
Tuesday through Saturday from 9 to 5, and on Sundays from 10 to 4.
Okay,
Or 11 to 4
11
on
to 4,
Sundays.
okay. And from what I understand, because we've heard a lot of you could come here and do events,
Yes.
weddings, funerals, pinnings, all kinds of stuff, right?
Absolutely. It's used for just about everything you can think of. And our website is very extensive on what the museum is, what we have to offer. All of our educational programs are on the website. Teachers simply go on there, pick the ones they want, and then schedule themselves when they're coming in, so that we know that with volunteers to take them and do what they need to be done. So the website I would really recommend at www.warhawkairmuseum.org. There's a wonderful tour, a moving tour that you can go on. You can watch our Veterans History projects. We have almost 500 now available that you can watch of all the different wars, the people that we've interviewed. So it's really a very entertaining, a really well done website.
And so we're from California, so this is not local for us, but for people traveling in the area, what's the nearest highway, the nearest cities? Where are you at?
Okay, we're right in the middle of the Treasure Valley. We're between, we're in Nampa, Idaho, right off of I-84. That's the main highway going east and west. You're going to go from Canada to California. You're going to go on I-84. So we have two big billboards, one going east, one going west, and it brings a ton of people here off the freeway when they see that. And so we're about 10 miles from Boise, Idaho. We're west of Boise, Idaho, right off of I-84. Very easy to find. Lots of signage on the highway, on the freeway too.
And Oregon's just a few clicks down the road too, right?
Yeah, Oregon is, Oregon's, maybe about an hour from here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ontario, Oregon. Yeah, maybe an hour and a half. Yeah.
So easy to find. So if you're up in the
Easy to
Boise
find.
area,
Yeah.
please stop by at this museum. And
We
you've got an
hope you
extensive
will.
gift shop, it looks like. I might have to go
Yes.
spend some money there on the
We
way out too.
We do.
So,
And thank you so much for being
thank you.
here.
I appreciate
Just
it.
an honor
Really
to have
do.
both of you
Thank you.
here. Thank you. And thank you both for your service to our country.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This display here basically is about a family, 4 old brothers dating back to World War II, all the way up through Korea. There's a son-in-law, 2 grandsons, and a great-grandson. And basically what transpired is from World War II all the way up through Afghanistan, the great-grandson got his second Purple Heart in Afghanistan and got home safely.